And we're back for another episode of Michigan Wolverines Live. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. My name is John D'Adamo, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. The great Mark Rogers, voice of college football, is not going to be with us today, most likely. He's going to try to maybe pop on at the end, but he's running around doing stuff. So I'm going to be running it today. Hit me up on Twitter at John D'Adamo. Jason does, others do. They send me stuff. Sometimes I run with it on air. So check it out. If there's time at the end of the show, I will try to take a call or two. Just keep in mind we have the Florida State show. So we'll try to take a call or two if we can, which we don't usually do on this show. So that's kind of cool. If you haven't already, subscribe, share with a friend, because this is content that we put out. We work hard to put this stuff out every single week. So if you haven't subscribed yet, keep in mind this might be some fuel for the fire. Ohio State, their channel has 1,000 more subscribers than we do. Is that acceptable? No, it isn't. Subscribe, and hit the bell so that we can catch up to Ohio State and overtake them. We're overtaking them on the football field. We should overtake them on the YouTube channels as well here at the Voice of College Football. All right, so why don't we start with this? Ohio State and Michigan have been punching back and forth in the recruiting game for a minute. We've seen it go back and forth from recruit to recruit. You see it on 247 Sports, the rankings. One day Michigan's ahead. The next day Ohio State's ahead. The next day Michigan's ahead. And now Michigan has punched back by having four-star edge Dominic Nichols out of Maryland commit to University of Michigan the other day. And this is a notable one for a couple of reasons. So this player is 6'5", 252 pounds. Look at the impact that this guy brings to the table here. Just laying it down, coming at these high school quarterbacks like it's nothing. There's another one right there. In the 247 composite, he is the number 28 edge rusher and number 12 player in the entire state of Maryland. And he has received 36 offers. And this includes teams like Wisconsin, Kentucky, Clemson, FSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Penn State, and Tennessee. Those are just some of the 36 offers this guy has received. I would argue he may be underranked. Especially in these numbers here. I don't know if he's just 12th in the state of Maryland. Looking at this film, I think that the schools that offered him know a thing or two about the impact player that this guy is. And you're watching it on the film right here. He's ready to pounce. Look at do you see the arrow? Look at him. Look at him go after this player here. Boom. Okay. And when you've got a guy that's 252 pounds running at you, you may want to look out. Let's see here. And we do have Ohio State versus Michigan in the chat as well. Drew saying Ohio State has the better class and it isn't even close. Well, 247 would have to beg to differ. You're only ahead by, what, a point? Not even a point? I don't know about that. We got some people saying go blue. Absolutely go blue. And this is an impact player right here who is going to help Michigan's already stout defense get even more stout in the coming year or two ahead. If the goal is to continue beating Ohio State, beating Penn State, and ideally winning the Big Ten championship and winning playoff games, you need players like this that have 36 offers in schools all over the country. Drew doesn't do math. He's a Buckeye fan. I'm going to leave that one right where it's hanging. And yes, we're going to talk about this in a second. Our buddy Jason Moose letting us know that Jeremiah Beasley is committing tonight. So these are just some of the things that are happening here. And Nichols, like I said, he's an impact player. You're watching the film. Don't take my word for it. Watch the film. And did you see that just like absolute rejection he did right there? I mean, this is the type of player that he is. So definitely keep in mind some of these things. Alrighty. How about that? So, as the song goes, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Closing time. The following 4 recruits are making their decisions soon. Jeremiah Beasley is committing today at 7 p.m. Eastern. There were reports that said tomorrow, but no. According to the YouTube video that I just saw, it is scheduled for 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. And in recent days, Jeremiah Beasley has gone up and up in the crystal balls. And now it's to the point where even the 2 Michigan State writers that had originally said Beasley was going to Michigan State have now changed their crystal ball. And now the Spartan writers are saying Michigan. So I think that that's pretty notable. And the fact that he moved up his commitment from tomorrow to today also probably says that he's ready to commit to Michigan. We have a vigorous Ohio State versus Michigan chat going on. I love it. I love it. All right. Friday at 1 p.m., offensive tackle Michael Uini, if I messed that up, let me know, is committing. And he is also 100% crystal balled. We can always use another offensive tackle. Here's an interesting one. Elias Rudolph, July 3rd at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Michigan has him at 100% crystal balled. And very notably, he skipped his Ohio State official visit. So he was originally slated to take an Ohio State official visit. He decided to skip the official visit. And finally, Aaron Scott, 4-star cornerback, who is still 100% crystal balled to OSU. However, in recent days, in recent weeks, after his visit to Michigan, he said this: "My heart says one thing, but my head says another." Aaron Scott. I'm in the business center. You may see people popping in and out. My heart says one thing, my head says another. I want to know in the comments. Now, we talked about this on Monday's Big Ten Live show. See what you think. I think, based on everything I've seen, that the heart is saying Ohio State because he's an Ohio guy. He got an awesome goodie bag from Ohio State. But I think his head, he knows in his head that he will get better training and better results at Michigan. Michigan has defeated Ohio State head-to-head the last 2 years. Okay, Michigan is neck and neck right now in the recruiting for 2024. Normally, Ohio State is kicking our butt left and right. And here, it's close, right? Ohio State's ahead by like a point. In many different factors. How about the fact that Charles Woodson, maybe one of the best players in college football history, tweeted at him to say go blue? You think that Charles Woodson might be a good mentor for this guy? And by the way, he was also from Ohio, so they have a lot in common. Maybe they have a coffee, maybe they talk about life. He gives some life advice, and maybe that'll help. Charles Woodson's always pretty great when it comes to social media. I've actually talked to Charles Woodson on social before too, so he's very active with fans. Maybe some of you in the chat have talked to him as well. He's awesome. And I think that if anybody can get Aaron Scott to flip, it's Charles Woodson, one of the best players in the history of college football, according to most rankings. Your DB coach is ranked 31st. Klink is top 10. Yes, he is. And okay, so a couple of things about Ohio State's defense. I think that the D line is pretty good. and maybe even will be one of the top 5 or 10 in the country. But when it comes to secondary, we saw what happened when Knowles tried to bring 9 and made Cornelius Johnson look like Odell Beckham Jr. Folks, we love Cornelius, but he is not Odell Beckham Jr. But he looked like it. And JJ looked like Aaron Rodgers. Because when you always use man coverage and 8 to 9 in the box, then that can be a real problem for you. Join our Patreon and Discord. Talk Wolverines all the time. Sign up at patreon.com/MarkRogersTV or on the main channel. Do a YouTube membership. It'll help out. So the other Scott that we're talking about is Justin Scott. And from what I've seen, from what I've heard, Justin Scott is really between two schools, Michigan and Notre Dame. And both fan bases equally think that they're going to get him. If I had to put my money on it right now, I'd say Notre Dame. I'll be honest. I think that Michigan has so many defensive recruits. And Notre Dame, remember, they kind of said, oh, we didn't need this recruit because we're going to get Justin Scott, remember? So maybe they went all in on recruiting Justin Scott, and that could be a factor that leads Scott to go to Notre Dame. But I think it's pretty neck and neck. Let's see what you guys think in the chat. That would be amazing if both Scotts went to Michigan. I think that would be really awesome. And Ed, I actually, for once, and we don't normally agree, but on this one, I do think you might be right. But it could go either way. I hope Michigan gets at least one of the Scotts. Mark Brian Robinson to Michigan, possibly. It's still definitely in the work. It's still a potential. I don't know yet. That would be a major coup, though, for Michigan, given that he is another Ohio player. Jason believes that both Scotts are actually silent Michigan commits. So that's that if that's the case, oh man, look out. Because remember, Jaden Davis got demoted to a 4-star. So they really do need a 5-star to get up closer to Georgia level. Then again, as we get to the senior year for them, I think there's a strong possibility that one or two of the players in the current recruiting class get bumped up to a 5-star. Jaden is absolutely one of them. And you know he's going to be working extremely hard to level up to a 5-star again. Protect yourself online. Get yourself some Aura, free trial of Aura. Let me tell you, folks, they have a lot of stuff that can really help you. They can flag all of the times your passwords appear on the dark web. They have a comprehensive suite of things to really help yourself online. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. If you hit the link, it helps the channel a lot. So please get a free trial. Thank you. All right. Beat Georgia. This is a topic that many shows, including some Buckeye programs, hopped on. According to Bruce Feldman on a recent podcast, Michigan has been scheduling time in practice that's called Beat Georgia time. Is that presumptuous, or is that just part of what Harbaugh does? And it might be awesome. In my opinion, it's more awesome than it is presumptuous, although I can see why some Buckeye shows and some other shows think it might be a little presumptuous. But I'm going to say this. When Michigan focused on going all in on beating Ohio State, that was pretty much I think one of the impetus, one of the ways in which Michigan then was able to beat Ohio State twice in a row. If you remember the phrase, "What are you doing to beat Ohio State today?" That was the mantra, and it still is. But now I think we all can recognize that if Michigan makes it to the playoff, Georgia is probably the final boss. Georgia has a super easy schedule and super easy path to 13-0. I don't think they're going to lose a single game again. Their toughest game is what? Tennessee. And Tennessee has somebody that we know well as quarterback, Joe Milton. Remember Joe Milton? He got benched for Cade when he almost made us lose to Rutgers. So I'm a little dubious on just how good Tennessee is going to be this year. So I think Georgia has a pretty easy path to 13-0. I would say you're not completely wrong, Mark. I do think that you've got to stay focused on beating Ohio State, and they will. They will. I believe wholeheartedly that Ohio State is still in everyone's mind the number one rival. But to allocate a little bit of playing time, a little bit of time. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Ohio State does this too. Okay, they don't call it beat Georgia, but if you're going to tell me that they didn't prep one iota for the Georgia game last year, I don't know what to tell you, because I believe that Ryan Day has focused a lot of effort on positioning Ohio State as a playoff team, as a postseason team, and that's why they looked so good against Georgia. They lost by 1 point on a midnight kick, and I believe it's because they allocated a little bit of time to prepping for the SEC throughout the season. I could be wrong. I haven't talked to any Buckeyes, and it's not really my area of expertise and in my Rolodex to have a bunch of Buckeye people. But I refuse to believe the game I watched on film that they didn't prep at all for Georgia throughout the season. Yep, absolutely. So I don't know. I mean, I think people are harping on the beat Georgia part of it. But at the end of the day, it's really a beat SEC, because Michigan needs to prep for Georgia, Alabama, LSU, and any others that might be in the playoff that they're not used to scheming against. Last year, they focused on scheming against Ohio State and beating Ohio State, and they did. And guess what, folks? Ohio State has more questions this year than they've had in a long time. You know who said that? Mark Rogers, voice of college football, said that. And by the way, I'm hosting the show solo today for those of you just joining. But Mark Rogers a few weeks ago on the show said Ohio State has more questions this year than they've had in a long time. Quarterback, who's the quarterback? I don't know. Secondary, how good's it going to be? I don't know. Wide receivers, they're going to be good. But how about the O-line to protect everybody? How good are they going to be? I don't know. There's a lot of questions, folks. The two position groups that I don't have a question about is wide receiver and defensive line up front. Those are the only two that I'm like, they're going to be fine. But every other position group, look out. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, McCord, I'm sorry, but McCord doesn't look like a 5-star quarterback. Watch the spring game, watch the film. He doesn't look like a 5-star quarterback. I'm sorry. And I think that so I was on Buckeye Mike's show a couple of days ago. I was on Buckeye Mike's show, and we talked about this at length. And he and I kind of agreed that if Ohio State loses to Notre Dame with Kyle McCord, that Kyle McCord is going to get benched. Devin Brown's going to be the quarterback, and then you sweep the table the rest of the year. And I actually think that's a possibility if Notre Dame wins. So what's really interesting is the path to Ohio State beating Michigan is losing to Notre Dame, most likely. Jason, it's a lot of factors. One is that, and I've talked to obviously our buddy Michael Campbell about this, Notre Dame fan, and don't you remember he was saying who we really want is Justin Scott. So when Michigan continued to out-recruit them in defensive players, they've been saying, hey, Justin Scott is who we want. So maybe he's been given an emphasis on recruiting, and if that's the case, it's kind of like a Jaden Davis situation with Michigan's quarterback. might be the same situation. So when you're doing your shopping and it's summertime and you might need some swimming trunks, you might need some gear. Um, why don't you check out the Voice of College Football merch site? So what we have, even for the Michigan channel, is we have a litany of products and T-shirts and mugs, pint glasses, etc. And on the main channel, you've got your hoodies and your aprons, your candles, you name it. It's summertime, so get yourself a pair of get yourself some Mark Rogers Voice of College Football swimming trunks. Whatever you need for your life, um, deck out your friends and family in Voice of College Football Michigan gear. I'm going to post the link right now to the merch site and just give it a look at some point. That's all I ask. All right. Our friend Isaiah Hole, I tried to get him on today. He wasn't able to join, but he always puts out really good content. And this is actually something that I've heard on some other shows. Our friend Steve Dace talked about this on Bigger Ten, that there was an opposing Big Ten coach who talked regarding Michigan last season. Really sealed it for them. This is a different program. The gap between them and Ohio State hasn't been this close in decades. It's reload, not rebuild, which is something they've never been able to claim like an Ohio State or SEC team. They also said, I'll keep reading here. It's proof of concept now. That's why they've stepped it up in recruiting. Jim Harbaugh has found a niche inside the portal. They breed the culture into these guys. It's elitist, but that's built on confidence, and confident teams are consistent. The only thing that they lack right now is that big win at the national title level. There's no reason they should have lost to TCU. They definitely know it, but they didn't do anything crazy in response. And remember, Jim's a distraction, but not to Jim. At the very top, it's a calm, consistent culture. And look, folks, and I'm sure all the Buckeyes are going to go crazy about this. There is no reason Michigan should have lost to TCU. There's no excuse, none. But there are reasons. I want to be very clear. There are reasons. These are not excuses, but there are factors that went into it. For example, Matt Weiss calling a Philly special, that should never have happened. That's against Michigan's identity, and it was a problem and potentially cost Michigan a valuable touchdown. Right? There was a ref call that I would argue is very questionable that called back that touchdown, but Michigan should have been able to ram it in the next play anyway. It was at like the half-yard line. Michigan should have been able to ram that in. They've done it all year, and so there were just multiple points in the game where if Blake Corum were healthy, if various things were healthy, Michigan probably wins by 2 scores. All I'm saying is there are reasons for losses. It's still an L. There's no excuse for it, and everybody in the program knows that. When you're doing your shopping on Amazon, which some of us do from time to time, all we ask you to do is click on Mark Rogers Voice of College Football Amazon link. Literally just bookmark it, and if you need to get yourself a grill, you need to get yourself some tongs, you need to get yourself paper plates, hot dogs. Just click Mark Rogers Voice of College Football Amazon link. 2 seconds, and it's the same shopping experience. So we've got wow, do we have a lot of comments right now? All right. Ryan Day, yes, this is true. This is very accurate, Drew. Ryan Day did choose McCord over JJ. And even Buckeye fans that I've talked to have wondered why. Because based on what we've seen on the field, JJ has seemed to look like the much better quarterback. Now, that's not to say that things couldn't change, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's probably a questionable decision. He usually doesn't make them. And this is, Mark, you're saying the same things I am. It was a touchdown, but those 2 pick sixes were terrible. Both can be true. JJ did make 2 pick sixes. JJ also was the reason why TCU didn't beat Michigan by like 30 points instead of 6. If Cade McNamara were in that game, or any Michigan quarterback going back to Rudock, I can think of 2 that would have done as, like, literally JJ and Rudock are the 2 I can think of in the Harbaugh era that could have kept it close with TCU. TCU was capitalizing on every mistake. TCU was just on it. They poured everything into that game. So I'm going to be taking, in a minute here, literally 1 or 2 calls, Michigan callers only, no Ohio State. Call the Big Ten show if you're Ohio State. Michigan callers who might be able to share some insight on recruiting, on the news of that. In about an hour and a half, Beasley is going to be announcing his pick. So Michigan callers only. Buckeyes, you can call the Big Ten show, or if Ohio State ever does calls. But we'll keep it to Michigan fans. So I've posted the link. Go ahead and click that if you want to call the show. So this episode of Michigan Wolverines Live is dedicated to the memory of Michigan and Arkansas and Patriots quarterback Ryan Mallett. He passed away at the age of 35. So we just want to wish his family and his friends thoughts and prayers. The high tides down here in Florida are really crazy right now. Do not go out in the water. Just don't do it. Just stay home. Or if you're going to go to the beach, stay far back. Far back. So rest in peace, Ryan Mallett, who was with Michigan for a year. He wasn't a huge impact player for Michigan, but he was an impact player for Arkansas. Looks like somebody was about to call in, but yeah, please call back. So let's look at some comments. We've got quite a bit of heat right now. Keep in mind, with the TCU game, the defense wasn't great. Let's just be real. The defense did let the team down a bit. JJ kind of felt that he needed to put the game on his shoulders. Does that remind you of any quarterback? Maybe CJ Stroud, who also felt like he had to put the game on his shoulders and threw interceptions. Remember CJ Stroud? Yeah. So I'm just saying, when quarterbacks feel pressure, sometimes that stuff happens. Calling the show is our good friend Jason Moose. Hey, buddy.
What's up, John? How you doing?
Good, man. You're sounding kind of choppy, kind of going in and out.
Is that better?
We'll give it a shot. So yeah, about an hour and a half from now, we got Beasley is going to be making his commitment. I mean, do you think there's any reason it won't be Michigan?
Not from all the stuff that I've got other information. I think he's pretty much a lock at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be watching for sure, and we'll see how it goes. I think it's really interesting that in the last few days, the 2 Michigan State writers decided to switch over from their Michigan State prediction to Michigan. So I think that's pretty notable that happened.
Yeah, I would be highly shocked if he chooses Michigan State over Michigan at this point. Yeah, I think that's a lot pretty much.
Yeah.
I think tomorrow we'll get Michael Looney tomorrow too. I think he's a lot too.
Yeah, we'll see. Listen, buddy. Yeah, the audio is still really, really rough. So I'm gonna let you go see if you can fix it. And I'm gonna take this other call. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Calling the show is Vaughn. Vaughn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. My audio clear?
Yep, you're good.
Excellent. Yeah, I was calling. I never called the show before, but
yeah. First, thank you. And by the way, I have to do something that Mark always does. Welcome to the voice of college football, Michigan. So I got to do it. So thanks for calling in.
Yep, no problem. Yeah, my question for you is, given the years of success that Ohio State has had, I get that they have a lot of turnover this year, but I still don't understand why, like many Michigan fans, and it seems like including yourself, like you feel very, very confident that I want Michigan to win. I believe they're going to win, but I just have these years of angst, these years of, okay, Ohio State is never really down and out. And so it just kind of reminds me of last year. The pressure was on Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship, go to national championship. And now it's kind of reversed, where the pressure's on Michigan. So I'm just afraid that it's going to fall short, and we may be underestimating Ohio State.
I don't think anybody is underestimating Ohio State. I think that it's a acknowledgement that Michigan has crapped the bed in the playoffs, and that there needs to be some type of emphasis on playoff games too. I think that's kind of the key. I don't think anybody is saying Ohio State's going to be a walk in the park. In fact, I've said on Big Ten and on Buckeye Mike's show, because I was on, I've crossed over to the Ohio State side of things, and have been talking to Buckeye Mike, and we're actually going to be doing a show in the season called 30-Minute War. So it's a great way to we'll be able to see the Michigan perspective and the Ohio State perspective and kind of battle it out. But I was saying, if there's one game that I see Michigan losing, it's the Ohio State game. I actually don't think Penn State is as good as people are saying. Like the media is saying Penn State could be awesome. I just don't see it. I honestly just don't see it. I think Ohio State has a chip on their shoulder. Ryan Day knows that if he loses again for the third time, the cries for his job are going to be crazy. And even if he goes 11-1, which he's only lost 2 Big Ten games in his entire tenure, and people have been calling for his firing because he lost 2 to Michigan. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. They're the most talented. If you look at just star ratings, they're the most talented in the Big Ten. And they're going to come at Michigan with more of a mixed defense. I'm sure there's going to be more zone. It's not going to be as much man. It's not going to be as much blitz. And on the offensive side, if they have Devin Brown, then that's a problem. If Devin Brown is the quarterback by that game, there could be a major issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. So I'm really hoping that Ohio State beats Dame, so that Ryan Day feels like he doesn't have to pull McCord, because Michigan really handle elite dual threats too well. And so, and I definitely agree with the Penn State analysis. Like I think 2024 is going to be Penn State's year. I think once has like a year in, and that defense really settles in, I think that's the Penn State's year for sure. But yeah. So thanks for taking my call. I don't really have anything else.
I appreciate you calling. That's awesome to hear a first time caller.
Yeah, definitely. I hope to do this again.
Likewise. All Are you a Michigan fan? If I say go blue, will you be okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, go blue. And thanks for calling in.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yep. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, we're gonna try again with Jason Moose. Jason, you're back.
Does that sound better?
It's still kind of choppy.
I wonder why that is. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
It's my setting?
Yeah, I think what you might want to do is reboot and maybe look at your settings and your audio. Yeah, because it might be Wi-Fi, might be lots of things, but yeah.
All right, bud.
Sorry, bud. I admit, no. I'm not saying for certain that Ohio State wins with Devin Brown. I'm saying he's scarier. And if Ohio State wants to win, it's going to be with Devin Brown. I don't think McCord is going to be able to get it done, period. Hey, Lemansky, friend of the show. John, you were wishing Day would go away. No. I think he's a great coach, and I don't want Ohio State at their worst. I want Ohio State at their best. I don't want excuses. What was so great about the 2022 victory is that there were no excuses, except for the fact that JSN was out. That was the one excuse that they had. But it was at Columbus, first of all, home field advantage. 50-degree weather, wasn't cold. The only snow was like a little bit of flurries. Pretty much everybody was playing. And guess what? Blake Corum, Michigan's best player, was out. He basically had, 6 yards in the whole game. So Ohio State didn't have JSN. Michigan didn't have Blake Corum. Michigan wins 45-23 at Columbus. After everybody was saying for a year, Ohio State's going to get Michigan back. It was a fluke. It was cold. People had the flu. It was snowing. We heard it all year. Gene Smith saying we want to play in an indoor facility if we have a first-round playoff game. These are the things that were said. Okay? 45-23 last year. That's all. We also had a defensive player called Khalil Mullings at a running back position, just FYI. Yes, it was a clip. So the first half of that, so I actually just rewatched that game. The first half was a puncher's game. It was literally punch, counter punch, punch, counter punch. What actually started to turn the tide was there was the Mike Sanders still play where he just played it perfectly and knocked it out of Kate Stover's hands. That was a key moment. But it was the first half was very close, and both sides were trading blows. But unfortunately, the defense started tiring out for Ohio. Well, fortunately for Michigan, the defense started tiring out for Ohio State. They continued to bring man. They continued to do man coverage, and it just wasn't working for them. As Joel Klatt said, it just wasn't working for them. And then they started to adjust, right? They started to realize, maybe we shouldn't be bringing 9 players into the box. And then Donovan Edwards finds the holes and runs for touchdowns close to the end of the game. And so I'll give Ohio State that they held on for the first half. It was a punch, counter punch. And then it then wasn't. And Michigan's just a team that's built to beat Ohio State. That's literally the entire that was the entire focus. What are you doing to beat Ohio State today? That was the mentality. And Michigan was built to beat Ohio State. Lemansky, thank you for your $10 super chat. We appreciate that. John, give me your Penn State weakness. When you say that, could you elaborate? Are you saying where are we weak against Penn State? Nowhere. That's the honest truth, unless players are injured. That's the only weakness I can see, and the fact that the game is at Beaver. But Michigan has actually done okay at Beaver. It's not like Michigan gets demolished every time they visit Penn State. It's kind of even, if I recall correctly. So I think Penn State, and if you go, so Buckeye Mike did about an hour, and I did about an hour and 16 minutes, and we actually did a decent Penn State chunk. Penn State's going to have to win that game on offense, because I don't think that they're going to be able to stop the combined assault of Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. They weren't able to stop it last year. Are they going to make adjustments? Yes. But they ran 417 rushing yards against Penn State's defense. Everybody's saying how great Penn State's defense was, and then remember, both of them are back. I think they're going to run a lot again. It's the same D coordinator. They're going to run a lot again. And J.J. McCarthy has now had all of spring. He didn't have spring last year. He'll have all of fall as the QB1. Remember, he was in a QB battle with Cade McNamara. And when you have a QB battle, you split the reps with the ones. So Cade had half the reps with the ones, and JJ had half the reps with the ones, which means JJ wasn't getting the full benefit of being a starting quarterback until game number 3 against Connecticut. So the answer is I don't see a weakness. And let's see if anybody... yeah, I'm happy to try one more time, man. Absolutely. I'm breaking up? Okay. Well, maybe it's me. Normally no 2 big runs. Yeah, Knowles did. Knowles really messed up in that game. It was really funny because Joel Klatt, they actually panned to Knowles in the box, and Joel Klatt was saying, these are the situations why Knowles is being paid $2 million. And then what happened 2 seconds after he said that? Donovan Edwards went on one of his giant touchdown runs. I do think that Ryan Day is going to take more of a overseer role this year, and he's going to say to Knowles, play more zone. Play more zone. Let's emulate the Georgia defense. Let's play more zone. Let's attack the field. Let's not just go for blitzes every time. Maryland is a trap game. I don't disagree with you. I actually was on the Big Ten show on Monday night, which, by the way, I host the Big Ten live every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Maryland could be a trap game. The problem with Maryland is that they don't stay healthy. And Michigan got Maryland early in the season last year when they were still pretty healthy. But they don't stay healthy. And I don't think that they're going to be able to hang with Michigan this year. I see it as being a larger deficit because it was only 7 points last time, and Michigan was facing September Maryland. Well, Michigan isn't going to be facing September Maryland this time. So I don't see that game as being very close, but I could be wrong. Also, most of us on this chat and on this channel right now remember Josh Gaddis. Josh Gaddis is now the offensive coordinator. So take that for what it's worth. Yeah, so I'll post the link one more time. Try one more time. It might... Okay, so I am in my business center, and I do that for the Michigan show so that I can have a much nicer looking aesthetic than when I do it at my apartment next to my dog. So it might be me. There is that possibility that it might be me. Let's go one more time. Jason Moose. Jason, you there? Now I can't hear you at all. Yeah. Can't hear you at all. Alrighty. We tried. I'm gonna be popping off in a minute here anyway. So stay tuned for a couple of things. So what I want everybody to be aware of, and remember that this episode is dedicated to Ryan Mallett. He passed away in a drowning. Very sad. So we do have a couple of shows coming up. We got Florida State at 6 p.m. Eastern, Miami at 7 p.m. Eastern. There will be a call-in show tonight, and at 7 p.m. tonight, at 7 p.m. tonight Eastern time, Jeremiah Beasley is going to be committing to somebody, and I'm pretty darn sure it's going to be Michigan, given the crystal ball situation, that the movement the last couple of days. Lemansky, Iowa fan, great friend of the show, says, I have doubts that Knowles is the answer. I do too. Now, remember, it takes time to implement a defensive scheme. This is his second year. It should improve. I have every reason to expect that Ohio State's going to get worse on offense and better on defense than they were last year. CJ Stroud is gone, and I don't think either of the quarterbacks are as good, but I think the defense is going to improve. JT2, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, JTT, he's extremely good. He's probably the closest to a Bosa equivalent, based on what Hummus Hero said. He believes JTT is the closest to a Bosa, and I think that's correct. But at the end of the day, I think the defense will improve, but it's still not going to be enough to beat Michigan. Maybe Notre Dame or Penn State too. Now, I do have Ohio State at 11-1. Buckeye Mike believes that Ohio State will lose to Notre Dame. I believe Ohio State will lose to Michigan, but 11-1 seems to be a consensus. So we'll see what happens. I agree. I'm not completely disagreeing there. You can't expect them to learn it all. But also, to go that heavy on blitz, that heavy on man coverage, and especially when Ryan Day remembers he was there coaching against Don Brown. He knows that Don Brown was so over-reliant on man coverage and blitz. And I know it's a different formation. It's not the same. I get it. Michigan had that Viper position. There are differences. I understand. But Ryan Day had to be thinking back to when he was crushing Michigan's defense with Don Brown. And it must have been extra painful to watch that game. So I believe that Ryan Day will be monitoring the defense more. I believe that he's encouraging Knowles to do more zone. And, you know, many of the Michigan fans call him Don Brown 2.0, and I don't fully disagree based on his approach so far. I don't fully disagree. And it's kind of shocking given that Ryan Day coached against Don Brown and crushed Don Brown multiple times, right? As an OC under Urban and as the head coach in 2019. And let's see here. Yeah, Don Brown. Yep, and he's now a head coach at UMass. And they're going to be playing week 0. So I will be watching a UMass game week 0. I'm very interested. It's going to be on primetime ESPN. That one of the marquee games of week 0, UMass will be playing. Alex, yeah, he's got to play more zone. He's got to play more zone and more physicality. And I'm not saying Ohio State didn't have parts of physicality last year. I thought that the Notre Dame game was super physical, and they needed that kind of gritty, tough win against Notre Dame. I also think that the first half against Michigan was very physical because I think they were trying to do that. They just weren't able to maintain it the whole game. Yeah, I think, Stephen, you're not completely wrong. Don Brown probably should have been fired 2 years sooner, but remember, he fooled everybody. He had one of the best ranked defenses in the country for years. And we forget that he got that high ranking mostly because he beat up on Indiana and beat up on Rutgers. Remember Rutgers 78-0? Remember that game? Yeah. So that was in his first year as a DC, and that probably contributed to his defensive rankings. Okay. The 78-0 beatdown, which included multiple defensive takeaways. Ryan Day is too cocky to notice anything like that. I don't know about that. I'm not going to go that far. I think Ryan Day is a fantastic coach. I think he has a defensive weakness. And I think he's going to have to make some serious adjustments if he wants to beat Michigan with 81% returning production. That's all I'm saying. I just think he's going to have a tough time at the big house. It's going to be home field advantage for Michigan. Wolverine maniac. Yep. Remember when Ohio State fans were saying the same thing about Harbaugh? Oh yeah, we want Harbaugh to get a lifetime contract. They're not saying that anymore. So just, I just everybody just let's temper our a little bit. I do think Ryan Day will stay for a while, but eventually Ryan Day is going to probably, my prediction is he's going to get sick of how ridiculously high the expectations are and go to a different school, maybe go to the NFL. I think his best path to his next job is probably an NFL job as a head coach. And there's going to be quite a few openings. Dallas Cowboys are not going to be sticking with Mike McCarthy forever. I can tell you that right now. If they don't win a Super Bowl in the next year or two, Mike McCarthy's gone, and Ryan Day, I can guarantee you, will get a phone call. Casey, hey, buddy. Yeah, Eric All and Cade, and you heard my prediction. If you haven't heard my prediction for the Iowa season, go back to Monday night's 8 p.m. block of the Big Ten show, where I predicted that Iowa was going to go 11-1, and I give you my rationale. I break it down. People said I'm crazy, but Cade McNamara is the quarterback they needed. He's not going to be he's not going to be Superman. He's not going to give you 100 billion yards. But what he is going to give you is ball protection, ball security, and enough game management where the offense will be competent. I'm not saying that the offense is going to light the world on fire, but with the defense that Iowa has, doesn't need to. Iowa, Michigan, Big Ten championship. That seems to be what's going to happen. Cade versus JJ in the Big Ten championship. What a way to end East versus West with Iowa versus Michigan, Cade versus JJ. That will be an incredible game if we get it. I hope we get it. I will be rooting for Iowa in all the games up until Michigan plays Iowa in the championship if that happens. I will be. I know some people were a little sour on Cade. He kind of took some parting shots, but Cade did amazing things for the school in 2020 to save Michigan from a Rutgers loss, and in 2021 led the team and won the respect of his entire locker room. That's why he was named a captain in 2022. You don't just get named a captain for no reason. You get named a captain because of strong leadership. And so I will be rooting for Cade and Eric All, just like I'm going to be rooting for Andrell Anthony. I'm just that type of person. You bleed maize and blue. You fight for the university. You go to another school to get your opportunity to start. I respect that, and I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be watching more Iowa than I ever have. I'm going to be watching more Oklahoma than I usually do, and I'm going to be watching more Northwestern than I usually do with AJ Henning. Alrighty. So with that said, Jason, I don't think that's a crazy prediction. It might even be 38-27 or 38-31 or 28-21. I don't think it's going to be the same demolishment than it was in 2021. It's going to be a good game. Michigan will probably win because Michigan has the far superior talent. And I think they're going to out-talent Iowa in the fourth quarter. It might be extremely close, just like Purdue was. Purdue was extremely close until halfway through the third quarter, and they just gave up. They not gave up, but you know what I mean. Like their talent, Michigan's talent overtook Purdue. You guys are so delusional. The season hasn't even started yet, and Michigan is going to Indy. No, I'm saying that is the most likely possibility right now. Drew, what's your most likely possibility? I'm assuming it's Ohio State, Iowa. Okay, fine. But let's be real, based on the Vegas odds, based on who Michigan is bringing back, I think it's questionable. No, that is not what I'm saying at all. And if you've watched me for more than 5 minutes, you know that that's not what I'm saying. And if you you know what, Drew? Here's what I want you to do. And any Buckeye fan who has a problem, call in Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Let's chop it up. All right. Call in Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We do a panel, and I'm more than happy to take your call. And we usually have 1 or 2 Buckeye fans on the panel. So people who say I don't put enough Buckeyes, there's usually 1 or 2 on the show every week. Be one of the 1 or 2 that is on the panel. Alrighty. So that's about it for tonight. Stay tuned for the rest of Voice of College Football's must-see TV block. Go ahead and tune in to Florida State Live at 6 p.m. In literally 2 minutes. Right here. And then at 7 p.m. is Miami Hurricanes Live, and then also the Jeremiah Beasley decision. So thanks, everybody. And as always, as I always try to say, go blue, and thanks for stopping by.